Hello there, Kōrero. Welcome to this week's episode of Campaign Kōrero, in a week where the media has finally caught up with commentators who have been trying to tell you that if you are not registered to vote by October 25, you will not be able to vote. And that includes casting a special ballot if you, say, find yourself outside of an area that you might have just moved to and want to go and check whether or not you can vote. If your details are not up to date by October 25, you simply do not get to vote this year. So if you want to check those out, head to vote.nz and check your details now. Also, this coming week is the cut-off date for choosing whether or not you go into the Māori role or to the general role. If by October 6 midnight you haven't made up your mind and you're on the general role, you'll continue to stay on there. If you're on the Māori role, you will continue to stay on there, but you won't be able to switch before the general election. And again, you can do all of that at vote.nz. If you're going in there as well, just a quick word from the Electoral Commission. They've said to me specifically to make sure that you know you need to check a couple of variations sometimes of how your name might be. It might be full name, middle name, stuff like that, just to make sure that you're definitely up to date on the system so that you've got the most up-to-date information and they have the most up-to-date information to be able to access these things. Right, as usual this week, we're going to do a jump through some of the headlines and look at what's in the news that's shaping this year's election campaign. But a little bit differently this time, we're not going to be doing an interview with anyone at the end. I'm going to take you through some resources that we released earlier this week and let you know about another one that we've got coming over the weekend. So let's go check out those headlines. The Green Party has officially kicked off its 2026 general election campaign with co-leaders Marama Davidson and Chloe Swarbrick unveiling a platform focused on wealth redistribution, environmental restoration and lower power bills. Centred on the slogan, "For all of us," the party called for taxing corporations and the super rich to fund essential public services, halting new AI data centres to protect natural resources and restoring degraded waterways, offering a direct contrast to the coalition's austerity measures. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon has explicitly ruled out working with the Opportunity Party following the rise in recent polling. Luxon's refusal stems directly from Opportunity's tax proposals, with the national leader rejecting any partnership that asks asset owners to pay more while being happy to introduce levies and increase user fees on the rest of the population. Opponents slammed the move as old-fashioned tribalism aimed at insulating high earners from tax reform. The ACT Party faced swift backlash from environmentalists and other groups after announcing a proposal to strip the Department of Conservation of its authority over game animals. Under ACT's policy, management and funding would be handed over to the Game Animal Council, effectively privatising key conservation decisions and prioritising hunting interests over native biodiversity protection on public land. Critics of this include federated farmers who say the policy shoots its shot and misses its mark in understanding the role of conservation services in animal population controls. New economic data underscores the compounding hardship for low-income New Zealanders as benefit payments continue to fall far short of skyrocketing rent, food and energy costs. Advocates point out that government indexation changes and welfare freezes have deliberately widened the inequality gap, leaving low-income families and disabled community members absorbing the heaviest costs of the economic downturn. The self-described free speech union sparked widespread criticism this week after publicly attacking a political reporter who pressed a minister with tough questions regarding a high-profile board appointment. Media watchdogs and union advocates noted the irony of an organisation claiming to defend free expression while actively trying to suppress adversarial journalism and protect government figures from public scrutiny. The Free Speech Union this week has criticised Auckland Councillor Julie Ferry for acknowledging concerns from the public over the use of an Auckland Council facility set up to support rainbow communities for hosting an event by well-known anti-trans Free Speech Union member Annie O'Brien. The Ellen Melville Centre has publicly supported the needs for trans people for years, and many feel hosting an anti-trans right-wing activist who's also gay on what the FSU is calling Good Faith Yarns tour, while deliberately mischaracterising the opposition and councillors' involvement as hypocritical, or typical for the right-wing AstroTurf organisation. The Free Speech Union is a registered third-party promoter in this year's general election. Justice Minister Paul Goldsmith's decision to strip hate speech protections from the Law Commission's review is being celebrated as a victory by groups like the Free Speech Union as the results of the review come out. but it represents a dangerous, misleading win that leaves marginalised communities directly in harm's way, according to some people involved. By narrowing the government's focus strictly to standalone hate crimes while completely ignoring the rhetoric that fuels them, the coalition has chosen ideological posturing over human safety, according to people helping with the survivors from the Christchurch terror attack. With police data showing hate crimes against Muslims climbing to 1 every 54 hours, refusing to close legal loopholes that exclude faith-based identity from incitement laws fundamentally prioritises the privilege to abuse over protecting vulnerable minorities from real-world violence. But for some reason, that view has not been covered by right-wing media, again platforming the AstroTurf lobby group like it's a legitimate source of information or a real union. National has announced a proposal to extend paid parental leave to 30 weeks, but tagged it with a catch. The policy won't fully take effect until 2029. Critics point out that while working families face immediate financial pressures right now, the coalition is withholding support for years while continuing to prioritise tax concessions for landlords and high-income earners. Former Labour Minister Stuart Nash abandoned his planned political comeback with New Zealand First following widespread condemnation over remarks targeting National MP Katie Nimmons' decision to take maternity leave. Union representatives and workplace advocates highlighted the incident as evidence of persistent retrogressive attitudes towards parental rights and gender equity within Parliament. The coalition pushed ahead with legislation to repeal and replace the Resource Management Act. While ministers frame the move as cutting red tape, environmental groups and legal experts warn the framework now prioritises property developer profits, weakens protections for fragile ecosystems, and severely curtails community input into local land use decisions. As part of its ongoing rollback of co-governance mechanisms, the government issued directives restricting how regional and local councils entered into mana whakahono ārohi or iwi relationship agreements. Māori leadership and legal scholars condemned the move as a breach of te tiriti or Waitangi principles designed to strip local hapu and iwi of meaningful governance oversight. Workplace Relations Minister Brooke Van Velden steered the second reading of the Employment Leave Bill through Parliament, seeking to overhaul the Holidays Act. While marketed as an administrative simplification for business, the Public Services Association, or PSA, and trade unions have warned that the change erodes existing leave entitlements and shifts bargaining power further away from everyday workers. Right, and that's our summation of this week's news. The next thing, this week's news is something completely different, but you can check that out on Fridays. The next thing I want to go through, though, is something that we've actually launched on Monday and give you a bit of a heads up about something that we've got coming up on Sunday. So on Monday, we released the first of 50 independent fact checks around this year's election campaign. These are claims or comments that have been made by politicians, political figures, or the media, and we've just checked their veracity with sources. And it's a really simple concept here. We say what the claim is, who made the claim, we go through the details, and then we give you the sources and tell you whether or not the claim is true, false, or misleading in some way. And as I said, we got 50 of them so far, and some of them are really simple, like Winston Peters is actually spelt with a Y, not an I, and he chooses to identify with a Y. And for some people, yep, that might come across as small and strange, but for a candidate who is running on an anti-trans platform, being able to choose his identity is suddenly really important to him, but something he seems to be trying to take away from others. There's a whole range of interesting facts and data points in here, like comments from Nicola Willis and Christopher Luxon about the importance of te tiriti or Waitangi, or not having everything rushed through under urgency before they went through and did that themselves. There's a whole bunch of claims in there around whether or not the government has actually brought down ram rates or interest rates or mortgage rates, all of those kind of things that you're finding in a lot of billboards and pamphlets and speeches. There's data and evidence here to show whether or not it's accurate or incorrect. And you can find that all at the moment over on my website, election2026.co.nz, and just hit the fact check section. The first 50 have already been released, and we'll be releasing more of them as we get closer and closer towards the election. But before we get there, one of the new things that we're putting out on this Sunday is a new system or new show that we're calling Coffee and Context. And that's going to stream live on YouTube and on Facebook at 10 o'clock in the mornings. It'll be actually straight after Q&A, but on my channels, not on a TV channel. So feel free to tune in and give a watch. This week we're going to sit down and actually have a look at something that popped up in that news piece that we did before around the Free Speech Union. They've shown up in the news 3 times already this week, and when I'm recording this, it's Tuesday afternoon. So, how does a union that's not a union, that we don't know where the funding comes from, that has a really clear political bias and is a registered political operative for this year's election, get so much influence over our media and our politicians? That's what we're going to be looking into on Sunday, and we're going to use a couple of different media theory frameworks to look into it, like the propaganda model, or we're going to look at something that's called the spiral of silence, where basically if these people come out and criticize you, who are they keeping quiet? We'll take a look through it. It'll take about an hour at the most. Come along with your questions or your comments. It'd be great to hear from you. So that will be on my YouTube page and my Facebook page. So check those out. Super easy to find. Everything is linked in the bio. Look, I'm going to leave you now. Until next week, make sure, as I said before, you've got your details all sorted for voting this year. And if you're making a decision about whether or not to be on the Māori roll or the general roll, that decision has to be made before midnight on August the 6th. So get investigating if it's something that you're looking into. Get changing if you're changing the role that you're on. Simple as that. And by October 25, we need to be ready to get out there and get ready to vote. All right, until next time, guys, ka kite anō. Look after yourselves, live long, prosper, be one with the force, and I will see you all next week. Hey, thanks for sticking around till the end of the video. While you're here, why not hit that like button or share the video or even subscribe to the channel. You could even become a paid YouTube member so you can see things released in advance, you get access to some exclusive content, and like all these awesome people, you get to have your name at the end of the credits as well.